Since its discovery by Western civilization in 1769, the San Francisco Estuary has changed immensely. An estimated human population of approximately 50,000 native peoples has become a population of over 8.5 million living in the 12 counties surrounding the estuary. Nearly half of the estuary has been converted to farmland and rangeland, with roughly a fifth of the estuary being irrigated for crops. Approximately 4% of the watershed is urbanized, with about a tenth of the urban area being occupied by industrial sites. These changes in population and land use are the ultimate cause for other modifications in the estuary, including the diking and filling of wetlands, ongoing dredging, the discharge of pollutants, the diversion of water, and the introduction of hundreds of exotic species. The biological inhabitants of the estuary that evolved over millions of years to the various complex physical, chemical, and biological processes were profoundly impacted by all the recent anthropogenic alterations to the ecosystem. In particular, several fish populations in the estuary have declined. One species, the Sacramento Perch, Archoplites interruptus, was entirely extirpated from the estuary by the mid-20th century. Throughout the early 1990s and early 2000s, several fish species were listed under the Federal Endangered Species Act in an attempt to prevent further extinctions. Along with several other strategies, conservation banks are a way to alleviate threats to these imperiled fishes. Conservation banks are permanently protected lands managed to provide ecological functions and services for specified special status species in order to offset or mitigate adverse impacts to these species that occur elsewhere. The objective of the present project is to aid a Suisun Bay landowner in opening a new conservation bank by using geospatial analysis to investigate potential flood and erosion risks associated with constructing the proposed Mallard Farms Conservation Bank. The anticipated bank site is currently a levee-bound duck club with limited hydrologic connectivity to Suisun Bay. In order to create a viable conservation bank, estuarine fishes must be able to naturally access the site. To create volitional passage into the bank, the landowner is proposing to breach one of the levees surrounding the property and thus allowing the site to assume the title signature of Suisun Bay. However, the California Department of Water Resources has expressed concerns about this action jeopardizing the integrity of an adjacent levee for which they hold an easement. The results of this project aim to address the Department of Water Resources' concerns by providing scientific analysis of wind fetch and wave models to inform flood and erosion risks. To investigate potential flood and erosion risks associated with constructing the proposed Mallard Farms Conservation Bank, two LiDAR-derived datasets, one from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and another proprietary Mallard Farms dataset from Environmental Data Solutions, were combined using a series of geoprocessing steps to create a study area digital elevation model. Stage height, wind speed, and wind direction data from the California Data Exchange Center were analyzed to develop possible scenarios. The study area digital elevation model and the potential scenarios were used as inputs to wind fetch and wave models developed by the U.S. Geological Survey and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers to predict fetch lengths and wave heights during specified high stage height and wind speed and direction scenarios. Adding a prescribed levee breach to the study area digital elevation model created an identical model except for in the area of the breach. Using these two models allowed for comparison of wind fetch and wave heights under both baseline and breach conditions. The results of this project indicate that construction of the proposed Mallard Farms Conservation Bank will not have significant impacts on the flood and erosion risks associated with wind waves. Both the wind fetch and wave models demonstrate that with predominant wind direction and above average wind speed scenarios applied, estimated wind fetch and wave heights within the proposed bank do not change from baseline to breach conditions.